Good evening, welcome to the latest edition of Last Bell Boxing. It's Carl from Last Bell Boxing, joined with the regular Stephen Sharpe. Stephen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Kurt, again.
So what we're going to do today is have a bit of a run through regarding your latest setup, where you are, how you got into boxing, and then I think we better talk about that little fight that happened Saturday night. Mm-hmm. So, Stephen, let's start from the beginning. How did you get into the promotional game?
Well, I suppose I've been around boxing, Carl, since I was a teenager. Do you know what I mean? I suppose my first kind of introduction, obviously, growing up, Barry McGuigan, I used to get the years ago, the bus conductors used to have rolls that they'd put into the ticket machine, and I used to, I'd get them when I got home to my grandmother's, and I'd make the ring and letting on it was Barry McGuigan. So Barry McGuigan would have been the first kind of association or attraction to boxing that I had, and I think everyone in Ireland at the time was fascinated with Barry, But it wasn't until I went to secondary school, and Philip Sutcliffe. So a lot of people would know Philip Sutcliffe Senior, two-time Olympian, amateur fighter from Ireland. Has run the Crumlin Boxing Club for the last 20 years. Was involved in a lot of training and a lot of top amateurs. Still up there in Crumlin, still producing top fighters. His I suppose most recent project now has just signed with Frank Warren. Willow, I think his second name now is after escaping me. Willow, if you come to me in a minute. But So Philip would have been me PE teacher, and in school, I said I joined school. I was a tubby old fella, a bit disenfranchised, didn't know where I was going. Philip took me under his wing. Running was my first thing. I got into running, then down to skill boxing, boxed in the skill boys, and from there, Philip was in Drimna at the time, went to Crumlin, and then around that time I also realised that I was related to a top Irish amateur at the time called Paul Griffin. Paul had won a European title at 22 years of age in Gothenburg in 90, I think it was 91, 92. So that was another kind of bit of a fascination and an attraction towards the sport. I was never going to be a world beater, boxing. Or the skin condition that made it difficult, particularly as I got a little bit older. But I suppose, look, and I think we see this in boxing clubs across Ireland. It didn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? And it didn't matter to the likes of Philip Sutcliffe, who still kind of took me under his wing, brought me into Crumlin, treated me now different than the Irish champions, the likes of Gavin Brown at the time, Glenn Stevens, all these lads.
There's this misconception about boxing gyms, isn't there? I mean, the one in Nottingham where people think you've got to be a world beater to even be allowed through the doors, and there's nothing further from the truth. Your boxing trainer just loves a trier. As long as you give everything, you'll be fine.
Absolutely. It's hugely important. I mean, my full-time job, my day job, I'm a youth worker in a youth service in Dublin, and have been for years, working with young people, kind of using the youth work process. And you know what? I've always said it. I only said it the other day. It's the exact same process that I experienced in Crumlin Boxing Club when I was younger. It's just somebody, an adult, taking you in under their wing, treating you with a bit of dignity, a bit of respect. Do you know what I mean? Encouraging you. That's basically what it's about. So you definitely don't need to be a world beater. And you know what? I suppose our model in terms of our promotion company now, Boxing Ireland Promotions as well, is you don't need to be a world beater to be a professional fighter either. There's levels. There's different levels. I suppose Willow Hayden is the young lad who's just turned over, an exceptionally talented young lad, has won national titles right the way up, and definitely one to watch. But no, you don't need to be a world beater. I definitely wasn't. But I spent a number of years in Crumlin Boxing Club. Philip had me coaching at one stage. I still have a bit of headed paper upstairs at Crumlin Boxing Club and training staff, coaching staff, and my name on it. So that would have been my initial introduction. Teenage years, I started to drift, started to get into a bit of bother, and it kind of took me well away from boxing for a number of years. Then eventually I went to college, went back to college to do a young community course in Liberty's College. It's a college in Dublin. Went on to do a degree. And from that, I started to realise I loved writing. I still do. I'm doing a master's at the moment, and I love writing. I love writing assignments. So that was something. And then, I suppose my interest in boxing, I started to put together bits of attempts at different types of different boxing articles or opinion pieces. And there was this Boxing Ireland website at the time. It was a website. It was an Irish boxing news. So there was irishboxing.com, and then there was Boxing Ireland. And there were two news. It was around the time like boxing was booming. Do you know what I mean? And these were two kind of news sites. And I remember I sent it was the Bernard Dunn kind of around that time, so there was a lot happening. And I remember I sent an article into this guy. It was Leonard Gunham was his name. And when I think back, and fair play to him, another person who didn't just go, oh, you know what, mate, you're shit, you can't write. He sent it back and forward to me a couple of times, and eventually published the piece for me. I think it was, my first piece ever was on Dane Bourne, Dane Irish Lightning Bourne. He was based in LA at the time with Freddie Roach. He was in the Manny Pacquiao type of circles, and he was at the time he was a big Irish fight prospect. It never really kind of transpired for him, but that was the first article. And basically, that's how I got back in my involvement in boxing. Then eventually, after a couple of years, I set up a kind of platform called Green Jab, which became really, really popular. Partly because I was mad at the time, and I'd be putting up controversial shit all the time. But I've done a lot like
we don't do that on Last Bell, do we?
But I did do a lot of and then I was back and forth doing stuff with Leonard, and I've done a lot of video stuff. Like there's stuff on there's channels on YouTube I can't get into with hundreds of I followed Frampton around, Willie Casey at the time. I don't know whether you remember Willie. Like we were involved, like doing stuff with Frampton when he was only starting off. Like my first kind of press pass was Leonard sent me up to the Ulster Hall. Was it the Ulster Hall for one of Frampton's first fights?
What's he like? You seems a sad enough fella.
Who?
Frampton.
I thought you were saying McGuigan. Frampton, yeah. Frampton was a really nice guy. He was always very open. He'd always. I remember we went to what he boxed in. We were in Wales. I remember we were in Wales, and I think it was on. I can't remember. He fought. We were over there for something anyway, and I remember he was finished and we asked him for an interview. And like in fairness to him, he walked all the way back to our hotel with us. Wow. To do an interview. Yeah, it was actually, I think, Andy Murray and Gavin Reeves it was the European title. And I think now I could be wrong, but I think Carl boxed on the undercard of it. But always very, very, always very open to giving interviews. I always liked Carl Frampton. So that was me first. So through that then, Green Jab, and I started to link back in with Phil Sutcliffe again and Crumlin Boxing Club. He had Willie Casey there at the time. He'd Anthony Fitzgerald. Anthony went on to box Andy Lee a couple of years later. But I started doing some stuff for them then. They had a setup at that time called Dolphin, and it was a kind of a promotion team made up of a guy called Don O'Leary and Philip Sutcliffe. So it was Dol Phil. It was a makeup, kind of a mash of both of their names. And I'd done some writing for them, a couple of fight programs. Would always be up there with my camera, photographs, videos, so spent a lot of time and was given some of the fighters some good coverage. Do you know what I mean? I'd known Philip a long time, so it was through that involvement. Then, like Willie went on to win Willie boxed for the European title against Paulie Hyland, and I'd have been right involved in that like that. Like I was right on the periphery of that for the whole training camp. We were with Willie in the hotel. We went to the venue with him. My wife was from Tala, that's where Paulie was from. I was kind of a Crumlin born and bred, so there was a real rivalry. I have a deadly photograph of my wife who's from Jobestown. It was from where Paulie was from. Sewn a logo onto Willie's shorts the day of the fight. Really, really really just amazing stuff to be involved in. Set the fire to me again.
Money can't buy that, Steve, can it?
No, And particularly if you're a fight fan, if you love boxing, like I spent my younger years in the National Stadium, spent it there, and never missing national scene. I can name all the fighters from around there, the Mark Winters, the Dave McKellys, the Paul Douglases, like from all of that time. So I was a massive kind of fight fan. So to be around that is incredible. And I always say, I don't care if my boxing involvement with boxing ends tomorrow. Like for instance, I took like Carl McDonald is a fighter I've been involved with the last couple of years. We took him for nothing. No, I don't mean nothing, but he was 1-0. Yep. He wasn't getting fights. We took him on board. We walked him. We got him a Celtic title. Got him an Irish title. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like that to me, like is like a world title. Do you know what I mean? Just to experience that, to be part of that. I got involved in Phil. Basically, what was so Dolphil finished. Then there was another promotions company set up. I got involved with Phil and that. Willie Casey was still involved, Anthony, and then Philip asked me would I kind of manage some of these lads with him, and I got on really well with some like the likes of Anthony with Cheryl and that. So then I started working with them, kind of co-managing. Then Philip asked me that I basically turn his son over, and Philip so young Philip was a really good KO boxing was that particular promotion, and young Philip was really good amateur, big puncher, and was a seal, like, you know, when people see he went pro, he kind of raised eyebrows.
What does that look like, Steve? What does a day in the life of a manager look like at that level?
I had a little brief talk with you before the show. So I'd imagine if you speak to some of the bigger or some of the people managing bigger fighters, you know, the likes of Mark Dunlop, maybe the likes of MTK, I'd imagine what it looks like to them is a little bit different to what it looks like to us. So I'll give you an example, right? I was down at the gym the weekend with two fighters that we manage, Jake Henney and Martin Quinn. So we have to do everything for them. So there's no national media gonna be knocking on the door to cover any of these lads. There's no Sky knocking on the door. So we gotta, like, you know what I mean? We gotta basically try and promote this. So you've
got to generate it.
All the media content that comes from them labs, a lot of it comes from us. We've also got irishboxing.com. Yeah, which is it's a long established kind of boxing news website, Johnny and Joe, and in fairness to them, they do a lot, like, so they cover all levels, not just the bigger lads, the likes of boxing bands as well. But like, yeah, we gotta be developing that, you know, as well as that. Then, you know, obviously we're representing them, so you gotta, you know, regarding trying to get them fights, but we also have to run the shows, right? And it was interesting. I know you had a guest on tonight, and I was reading some stuff and, like, the conflict of interest and the, you know, managing. I'd love, like, me and Leonard do say it, like, in terms of boxing and promotions, we'd love never to have to run a show. Like, running a show is the biggest pain in the balls you'll ever come across. It's the most stressful. It's horrendous. Like, it is horrendous to try run shows in Ireland because of the costs. It's extortionate, you know. But otherwise, you don't get these lads out. You know, they don't get fights. You know, it's always on the edge. You don't make any money. You know, always when I enter into this conversation, the next question is, why do it? And we ask ourselves, like me and Leonard, like, look at each other sometimes, and Dennis Morrison looks after our operations up north, and we'd be looking at each other going, what are we doing? Like, you'd have to, like, there has to be something wrong with you. But no, you have to have a deep love for the sport. Yeah, you really, really do. And I know for me, sometimes, like, it's an opportunity to really impact people. So this might sound a little bit corny, but to really kind of impact lads' lives. And, like, there's fighters with us, like, you get, like, opportunities, do you know what I mean, that they would never get. You know, I know someone said to me, like, some of the lads that we have, they're not going to be world beaters, you know. No. But you can offer them, like, for something like, there's one lad at the moment that he's going to be making his debut, like, and he's not 100% sure whether it's for him. It's tough going, like, you know, you got to sell tickets. If you're going to fight in Ireland, you have to sell enough tickets to give your contribution to the show and pay your opponent, you know. So the agreement is, make your debut on the sea. See how it goes, see how you feel. And a lot of the lads, that's what we say to them. Give it a go. If it's too tough, we don't make promises. We don't promise. You see that a little bit, unfortunately. Lads getting sucked in, promising them, particularly at the level we're at, promising the sun, moon, and stars. What's it Leonard to say? We under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
That's what we try to do. So we just try to provide lads an opportunity, a platform. And what we're hoping is that we'll find that gem. I only had a conversation the other day. I was talking about Philip Sutcliffe actually and Willie Casey, like Big Bang Willie Casey. I don't know whether that rings a bell for you. Willie came from nowhere. He came from nowhere. He started to go onto the radar when he beat Tyson Cave in Canada. Then he wins a European title. Then he goes and boxes Guillermo Rigondeaux for a world title. And you're always so, when you're sitting down at the end of a show, paying the bills and you've 3 envelopes left, but you've got no money left.
Yeah.
You're kind of going you're always banking that maybe someday, we'll get a Willie Casey.
That's a brutal side of the sport, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, 100%. But you're just always living in hope, or living in hope that you'll get a lad, and we do occasionally. Like that I mentioned, Carl McDonald. We got him on a show a year and a half ago, an MTK show, and he boxed Ian Butcher. He dropped Ian in the 4th round. I thought he'd beaten him. Okay, he didn't get the decision, but if he'd have got that decision, I could have changed things for him.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's these margins, these, and he wasn't one of our fighters, but one of the McDonough brothers, we were over, Katie Taylor was making her debut in London, and I think it was it Jake Ball, was it who? He stopped one of MTK's kind of prospects at the time.
Yeah.
And I know he wasn't fit, so the idea I think was that he was going to go out and just give it his all in the 4th round.
Yeah,
and he wobbled them and then stopped them, and so you're kind of living for opportunities like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the idea in terms of what we try to do.
Without naming names, then Steve, that won't be fair. Have you got any at the minute that you think you might just be something special? There is. There's 1 or 2, and we're speaking to 1 or 2, but I think, and I always explain this, what we're trying to do, if we can build, I always say this, right, so there's the Premiership. It's like football. It's like football. There's the Premiership, right, League 1, League 2. I'll say humbly, we're level 4, just say. So we're trying to build a platform. So what our job at the moment is trying to encourage those involved in boxing, like the likes of the Boxing Union of Ireland, to recognise that this is the level we're at, and encourage them to make sure that we can continue. If we could start to create a kind of a circuit, a busy circuit down south, that eventually then you have the platform to be able to kind of develop the next level of fighter. At the moment, it's a bit of a struggle. We haven't had a show in Ireland in, I think, 2 years because of the cost of insurance. The insurance costs in the Republic of Ireland are extortionate. 400 quid to have a show up in Belfast, 5 or 6 grand to have one down the south of Ireland. And it's not just those, there are businesses going out of business. There's companies going out of business because of it. So yeah, there is, but I suppose I'm not so, it's kind of, you're not so much concerned with, there is fighters there, and there is prospects there, but I think it's more about building that platform, and we're getting a lot of guys and girls now. I had a call today about another girl wanting to come into pro boxing from other disciplines, and a lot of these guys are doing well. One example is Stephen McAfee. Stephen McAfee has won a Celtic title. He's been involved in 2 fights that will kind of go down as, definitely one of them as fight of the year, incredible kind of contests. Then he went and he boxed Eric Donovan for an Irish title live on TG4. So this was a lad nobody'd known about. He ended up losing to Eric, but again, giving the lads these type of opportunities, is kind of what Boxing Ireland promotions are about. And if you think you're too big,
for the level we're at, fine, but that's kind of what I just need to let me dog over here. That's what we're that's what we're about, really, and hopefully, by giving fighters this platform, eventually we can start to attract kind of some bigger names in,
Yep. So what's the plan moving forward then, Steve?
Well, at the moment we're looking at, hopefully we're going to announce a show in Alicante in Spain tomorrow. Hopefully. Yeah. You're not putting this out tonight, are you?
Say again.
You're not putting this out tonight, are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So hopefully tomorrow we look to announce that. That will be a Boxing Ireland Promotions card. We're going to Celtic Clash 11. We're going to call it. So we'll have the whole card. So get a lot of our lads over there. Again, expensive business. They got to kind of through sponsorship and that. And then we have the posters done for Celtic Clash 12, which will take place in Belfast in September. Fingers crossed. And then we're in talks to have our first Dublin show in a couple of years in November.
Brilliant.
So we're just waiting on this COVID thing to pass, and then we've some exciting stuff to get involved in and announce.
So what we'll do, Steve, we'll put all the links and everything in the description box of all your ventures that you've got at the minute. Okay.
100%.
I'd like to thank you for spending some time tonight. Good luck with all your future ventures. And
Cheers,
we will no doubt catch up soon. If you just stay on for me for a minute, I've got something of interest, okay?
No problem.
So, do you want to take it out then, Steve? A little bit of a promotion for your ventures before I finish it?
Yeah, just follow us on Low Irish Boxing on Twitter, Low Irish Boxing on Instagram, Boxing Ireland Promotions on Facebook. Keep an eye on us. We're busy. We're the busiest promotions company in Ireland, the most consistent in Ireland. Probably in the history of Irish boxing, we're the most consistent. We've continually run shows, 3 and 4 shows a year. Keep an eye on us. If you're a company and you'd like to get behind us, get in touch. If you're a fighter who'd like to sign with us, get in touch. Thank you.
Well, you worked that slot, didn't you, Steve? Well done. Okay, guys, remember, next Last Bell live shows Thursday night at 9 p.m. Be sure to join us on the show. No doubt Steve will be on as well to plug your ventures again. I'll see you all on Thursday. Thank you. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, thanks.